Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live discussion about getting ready to leave and exit the quarantine. We have our panelists here today, and before I introduce them, just a little bit about myself. I'm 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧. I'm the Customer Success Specialist at Lanteria. I'm hosting this discussion today. So a little bit about Lanteria. We are a leading developer of HR management solutions and have been around since 2006. We're based out of Seattle, Washington, and we have 5 different solutions to build your perfect HR suite. We offer advanced data security. We're available in SaaS subscription on premises. We have over 200,000 users worldwide. The solutions we offer core HR, time and attendance, recruiting and applicant tracking, performance management, learning management, self-service for every user level, and a report center for analytics. We're proud to have clients in 40 countries worldwide. As you can see, we're spread out and just expanding. Here's a few of our clients that we've been working with. And of course, you can tell that we are big Microsoft supporters. We're a gold partner and also preferred for their business applications. Now to the important part, our experts. That's why you all are here today. We're hoping to talk a little bit about getting ready to exit quarantine. I know everyone has had to make a lot of adjustments based on the times, and we will just have to keep adjusting. And to help you do that, we have gathered some experienced HR gurus, and together they will help you prepare a blueprint that will help you hopefully get your organization prepared to get things back to normal, or at least our new normal, and exit quarantine. A little bit about the panelists. We have Emma. She's the founder of OneCircle, and OneCircle went live in 2020 and has been featured 7 times on Forbes.com with a community of 250 HR consultants from around the world, ready to work virtually on demand. Her objective is to improve and enhance the quality of life through diverse work options, thus uplifting broader society by opening global work opportunities, regardless of gender, age, location, or social standing. Of course, we'll hear more from her about that in just a moment. Emma, do you want to say hello? Just wave. So.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
Ben, he is visiting us from Ireland. He's focused on business growth and an expert in HR marketing and has a long history in many HR related fields. He's a lifelong HR professional originally hailing from Australia. He's worked both in-house and as a consultant in human resources and marketing leadership roles. Through his HR business podcast, blog, coaching programs, and marketing services, Ben helps businesses in the human resource industry grow faster. Hello, Ben.
G'day.
And we also have Kelly here. She is the founder and managing director at HR Star. With over 20 years experience in the HR world, and through her extensive experience in senior HR positions, Kelly identified that companies needed more than just HR in a traditional sense. She recognized that businesses could increase productivity and reduce staff challenges by embracing employee engagement as a key element of their company culture. HR Star partnered with forward-thinking leaders who wish to enhance the employee experience and develop highly engaged teams, ultimately driving business success. Hello, Kelly.
Hi.
So before we go into the questions that I have for you, I would love for you to just introduce yourself and maybe let our viewers know a little bit more about you. And we can just start with Emma, if you like.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kelly, and thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm a recovered full-timer, and this is how I always introduce myself. I thought it's easier just to you know, take the plunge and start your own business. It's never that easy. They don't tell you about this part, but you love and you enjoy every bit of it. So I do have more than 20 years of experience in HR. Worked in the Middle East, covered the Middle East, North Africa, Europe, and have recently in 2020 started OneCircle. It's an online platform that connects businesses with freelance HR consultants virtually and on demand. It's the right platform for the times that we are living today. So I guess it was fortunate timing that we just gone live, and hopefully we'll be able to help businesses to go through this period without having to incur big costs by leveraging on our community of HR consultants.
Thank you. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, and thanks for inviting me along, and hello to everyone and to the fellow guests, presenters. Yeah, so an Aussie living in Ireland, and I've got a funny history, a bit of a hybrid if you like. I was an in-house HR professional, then spent an absolute fortune building a big fancy website to launch as an independent HR consultant, got absolutely no clients as a result, so learned all this marketing stuff. And ever since then, I've been doing marketing for HR companies. So yeah, I've worked across, obviously across Australia, but then throughout Asia, and then in Europe, and a little bit in the US as well. So I'm going to defer to Kelly and Emma a lot on this one in terms of current best practice for some of the HR ways of bringing your workforce back into quarantine. But I've got, you know, plenty of war stories to tell, and I've been talking to business every day about what they're doing on these sort of things. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Kelly.
Hi everyone, and yeah, thanks for having me today. So I've worked in HR for over 20 years, having worked sort of in-house in HR roles from HR administrator right up to HR business partner. 5 years ago, I decided, hey, let's start my own business. This will be fun, which it is, and I love it. So HR started to look after HR for a number of clients, and mainly those who decide to outsource their HR. And whilst we look after all elements of that HR process, something that we focus on the most is employee engagement. So for me, this situation that we're in at the moment is just really highlighted the need to have an engaged workforce and how much people should, you know, engage their people and rely on their people to ensure business success. So we're talking to clients at the moment a lot about the return to work and what that means in terms of planning the return for people and re-engaging them with the workplace. So really relevant for me, this topic today.
Thank you so much. I think it's probably one of the most important topics we could talk about at this time. And I'm so grateful to have all of your experience together. That was a whole lot of experience to help us guide us through it. Okay, so we'll just dive right into some of the questions we have for you today. And maybe we could start with Ben. Since you agreed to defer most of it, we'll just start with you. Lessons learned during quarantine. So basically, is there anything that you've learned, whether it's working with HR companies that you're consulting or throughout your marketing? What have you learned about how this will affect us during the future and in our work life? There's a lot of ways, but specifically in work life.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, the first learning I've had is obviously that it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful having my 3 kids around me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for an indeterminate amount of time. So that's a highlight for me. But other than that, I mean, we all know all industries are suffering. And in the world of HR, obviously recruitment is really suffering the most in terms of what's going on. but there are slowdowns in all areas, and lots of HR related businesses and consultants and firms and the companies themselves. It does depend a little bit on the industries. So the retail, the hospitality sectors, obviously companies that are serving into those are struggling, and then looking to, I don't know, generate revenues, survive in different ways. I've seen a lot more of the partnership and switching models. So recruitment firms teaming up with training companies, recruitment firms teaming up with outplacement or coaching, a lot of that stuff going on. So we're doing a lot of work in that area. Anything remote work related is obviously on the rise. You'd want to be an early investor in Zoom, that's for sure, because you could be on the beach somewhere now if you're allowed to. Anything online learning, coaching around the remote workforce, obviously it's just growing so rapidly. And I do know of one particular company that was a tourist business. They saw this coming slightly, a few weeks early, and they have transformed their business into a team development, a virtual team development business. And so their business has actually grown exponentially because they're an online-based business. Tech firms, financial services firms are probably doing better than others for different reasons. Payroll and the section, just managing payroll is a big pain point that I've seen and through client work. The complexities of managing the furlough schemes have been really horrendous in some cases. There have been some real horror stories. I mentioned to someone else recently that I had to stare down an angry mob of workers who had payroll issues. Something had gone wrong with the payroll. They're coming at me and all the union staff and everything upset. So companies that have got this wrong, there's going to be huge change in the tech space and in the management of payroll systems and things like that. So do watch that. And the other one I've seen in terms of client work and so on is the digital transformation agenda has been pushed up, or has been pushed up that agenda. And you're starting to see CFOs and things like that push that more in terms of efficiency, operational excellence, particularly now that we have dispersed workforces. So it's either a good or bad time, but in terms of trying to get new processes, software, platforms in place, you're starting to see more conversations happening, that's for sure. But in terms of the generalisms, yeah, I mean, remote work is obviously here to stay. How it comes back is going to change company by company and all that sort of thing. But undoubtedly, is that everyone's business, everyone's employer, it will change. Even though you might say, you're right, we're going to go back to the office when we're allowed to, or we'll have part-time workforce or remote work. That's just managing your operations. But in terms of your customers and your supply chain, everyone else is going through a huge amount of change. Your business will change, your products and services lines may change, which affects how you manage the whole employee life cycle. So yeah, for me, there's huge elements. But the overarching message, I guess I'd push, and we can dive into it in more detail again, but the communication is just so important. I saw a brilliant post on LinkedIn where someone was saying a future job seekers question in the interview, they're going to ask the employer, what did you do for your staff during the pandemic? It's not just what's it like to work here, but what did you do during that time? Because I've already seen people starting to leave companies, get new jobs during the lockdown. So if you can only imagine how companies have reacted in the earlier stages, what that's going to do to their employee turnover and engagement levels, that may increase if they've done well. The engagement may increase, but equally if they've done it poorly, turnover is going to suffer. So how we move into this next phase is just so critical in terms of retaining and engaging, motivating staff. Plenty of other stuff there in terms of managing performance, keeping people engaged, all that sort of stuff. But they're the key elements. I'd be interested to see what the others think as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned really stood out about partnerships right off the bat, that this is really forcing a lot of people to create partnerships maybe where they wouldn't have before, and out of desperation looking for help, that actually ends up being something very positive.
Yeah, actually, sorry, that reminded me of one more thing. I had a conversation today with the CEO of the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧 Group, which is the big European tech analyst company, that like the Josh Bersin company in the US. So for Europe, it's the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧 Group is one of well, probably the leading. And they were saying that a lot of the companies that they've been speaking to have sort of paused to, businesses kind of shut down for many of them. What do we actually do? What's our pivotal, USP, our positioning, our strengths in the market, both as an employer brand and in terms of go to market. So I think everyone, whether it's an internal HR person, leader, or if you're serving into those companies, now is a time to really reflect on your strengths and weaknesses and your positioning.
Thank you so much. Do any of the other panelists have anything to add to that?
I would definitely agree with what Ben said there. And I think, it's really highlighted the need for a people-focused approach. We've dealt with clients who've done the communicating, furloughing process at the beginning of quarantine really well. And those that didn't, because they just wanted to keep the business open as long as possible. And, then that really just sent out a message to their people that, well, business and money is more important than the people. And I think the way that, that they've been treated going into furlough will definitely affect their engagement levels and how they feel about returning to the workplace. So I think that's definitely, a lesson that I've seen that has been learned in terms of how you are treating your people and the sort of knock-on effect of that. But just to echo Ben's point around communication, just like the importance of it, how are you communicating to your people? What are you telling them? I think if we liken it to how we all felt when this started happening, it's like, well, are we going into lockdown? Are we not? How long for? What does it mean? And the moment that our government started giving daily updates, people felt, more sort of relaxed about, right, I know that today at 4 o'clock I'm going to get the information I need, I'm going to be updated daily. And I think you just can sort of reflect that into the workplace, that your people will be in the same situation. And again, I've heard from people who've been furloughed and they're just sat at home and they don't know, will they have a job to go back to? Will that have changed? When am I going back to work? And it's just as important to keep communicating to your teams who are not at work as well during this period. So yeah, massive lessons there in terms of how you treat your people and how you're communicating with them.
And in terms of the HR managers who have to break the news to their employees, does anyone have any advice for them? That's something that has come up a lot. I'm afraid to ask the question. I know there's no good advice, but
there has been a lot of practices that that there has been some companies that were letting go of their people over Zoom recently that I've heard of. So this is where a business can actually turn the whole situation in a way where they can foster this relationship and increase engagement and trust, or they can actually lose the plot completely. One more thing as well is the whole new concept of biotrust that sometimes we forget about because of everything that is happening, but it's going to be very important. It's important today, and it's going to be even more important later on for HR professionals to think about that. When we think about EVP, etc., today we need to include something new. We need to think about how can I create that biotrust in me as an employer and as a company. How am I gonna get my employees to feel confident that when they are coming to work, they're not going back home and then putting their own families at risk? Because all of those questions, they're gonna still be there. We're gonna think about it. We will be more careful, etc. So communication in this regard is very important. And as an employer, taking charge of this communication and then making sure that everybody understands what we are doing and how we are managing the situation, and making them feel comfortable so they can trust us as employers that we actually care about them and their families. And it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we're having to have conversations as HR professionals with people regarding, unfortunately not bringing them back into workplace, I think it's inevitable we will see that happening. And, just again, to touch on Ben's point, businesses are taking the time to stop and reflect and think about, do I need to bring back the same team? If my business has changed, do I need a different team? Can I run leaner? Do I need to run leaner because obviously I don't have the same revenue at the moment? So I think we will be seeing that. And what we're seeing with our clients is it's very much, again, to, how as Emma's just said, it's about being open and honest and communicating as early as possible. Don't leave it so that the employees are sat there having to guess or hear it from somebody else. If you think you're making changes in the business that will affect them, communicate that to them as early as possible, but also explain why. I think if you can share the why you're having to make these changes or make these decisions, you're much more likely to get buy-in from your employees. I'm not going to say that obviously not necessarily going to be happy about losing their jobs, but I think it's the process that you handle it will will definitely make that a smoother process. And we've been doing some redundancies with the client at the moment. And we've been very open in the communication about why we're having to make these decisions. And it, you know, has gone smoothly. But like you say, it's never a great conversation to have, but it's one that should be done with empathy and, you know, open and honesty as well.
Sounds like what you're all saying is if you focus on the employee relationship like a relationship and treat it with the communication and respect and empathy it deserves, then you can use this as an opportunity to foster trust and a reputation that could benefit you to rebuild and transform your team if needed. Or it can break that and you will gain a reputation of, no, this is not a place that people want to work. They don't care about their employees.
Yeah, definitely.
Very interesting times. And that really brings us to the next kind of question about what businesses are looking for right now. And maybe Emma, that's something that you could take a stab at.
Yeah, sure.
What talent mindset you referred to earlier?
Yeah, because so the current situation, you know, everybody talks about this big exercise that you went through when everybody just flicked a switch and we went into remote work. A lot of businesses were had a certain level of readiness because, you know, they used to work remotely to some extent. Others were not ready at all. But there's one thing that actually came out of this, and it's a good thing, both from an employee perspective and from a business perspective. From an employee perspective, I think a lot of people have developed this level of self-discipline, or so now they are more confident that they can actually deal with anything. They can get work done whether the kids are at home, things are hectic, it's their mind is all over the place, they are worried, etc. But they could still get work done. And on the other side, so basically remote work is not that scary thought anymore, right? But on the other side as well, from business perspective, a lot of the businesses who were not comfortable with the idea of remote work or flexibility, today they going through this exercise, it helped them to develop a certain level of trust in their own people, because they realize that actually work is still getting done. My people are still delivering on projects, and I'm still comfortable managing the process from remote, so it can actually work. So this whole exercise helped both sides, and it's, even though remote work was a trend, it expedited the whole process. So I would assume that a lot of those businesses, even though lots of them are going to be forced to have like 30 or up to 40% of their workforce working remotely for the next maybe 6 to 12 months, until this pandemic is less of a threat. But most of them, most probably, they're going to take a step back and think, okay, that might help me manage my costs, etc., etc. And they're going to be more comfortable with the idea of a hybrid remote team or a flexible remote team, or maybe for the more adventurous ones to go all remote. And when they do that, this brings me to your question of the open talent and open talent mindset. This is where they start realizing that if my team is remote, then this means that my talent pool as well becomes global. So this means that why would I think about hiring people from my same geographical location? Then work becomes location agnostic, right? Because it doesn't matter. And the realization is going to hit, it's going to settle down to think, okay, then I can hire from anywhere around the world. I have access to a global talent pool that is out there. Further down the line, and I hope this will happen really quickly, a lot of people will start thinking that through that open talent mindset, that I don't need to actually hire them as well full-time. I can reach out to experts as and when I need them on projects, and I can bring them and plug them in on a particular project to help me out. And And this is when you will be, as a business, extremely efficient. You will keep your costs down. You will have high value, and you will have experts working on each and every project, just simply because you are able to reach out to them at the time when you need them, and you are able to afford them because you need to pay them per project. You don't need to actually hire them full time anymore. So this mindset is when that shift and switch happens, this is when businesses will be able to build networks of talent. And by network of talent, I mean they will have, on any project, they will have a combination of full-timers that they have as part of their core team. They will have freelancers, they will have independent contractors. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because at any point in time, you know who is working on your projects. And yeah, this is the shift that I actually think is going to happen very soon. Now, what are businesses looking for? Definitely, they are looking for cost optimization today. Everybody is in this. How can I continue running my business? Even if I pivot, I need to ensure that I'm managing my costs very closely, which means if I can afford a level of expertise without having them full-time on the payroll, I'm going to go for that. The second thing that businesses are looking for are flexibility. Flexibility in terms of scaling up and scaling down whenever I need to. The only way to do that is not by having a rigid organization structure, is by having a more flexible one, is by having access to talent without having them full-time. One last thing that I think businesses are, and most of them are realizing the importance of today more than ever, is innovation and freshness of thought. Because these are unprecedented times that we're going through, and a lot of businesses need to think quickly about how am I going to pivot? How I'm going to go from a tourism company to become a development company, I think. So how am I going to change my whole business model? And I need people to think with me on that. And the ability to reach out to different people from different parts around the world to inject this freshness of thought in your own team is amazing, because this is what innovation is about, right? It's bringing in all of this freshness of thought together. And then for it to help you to run your business. Yeah, so it's not easy. This shift needs to be, even though we talk about it as an open talent mindset, it is a mindset, but it's a shift in our way of thinking and our way of working. And the shift needs to be intentional. We can't go with the flow and hope that, things will be okay. We need to be intentional about how am I going to change the way that I run my business and I work, and how am I going to change the way that my people actually work and deliver on projects? How am I going to engage them, even though I'm going to reach out to freelancers or to independent contractors? How am I going to be attractive enough as a company for that freelancer or independent contractor to work with me instead of working on somebody else's project? Because when this shift happens, everybody is going to go after this talent pool, and everybody is going to go after those experts in their fields. Everybody will want that same remote work expert to help them over the transition. Why would that remote work expert prefer me as a business, not the other business? And so there's a lot to think about. And this is why I say this shift needs to be really intentional and very well thought through.
That is a lot to think about, and it just excites me, because in the same way that you're talking about making businesses more efficient in these ways, it also will make them more inclusive by, like you said,
Yes.
opening up the hiring pool to a global community. You're also opening up the pool to people with disabilities who are not able to clock in and out of a full-time job, but who can very well do that job from home. And just a world of other possibilities.
Yes, that's the adaptability, right? I mean, that's going to be the differentiator moving forward. If you're adaptable as a business or not, and if you are, then you will definitely weather this whole situation and go through it successfully. And then that's it. One more thing that I would like to add is that a lot to think about in terms of the current organization and the current way that the roles are structured. So putting in the open talent mindset or the open talent hat, I need to start thinking about skills more than jobs and more than roles. And what are the type of skills that I need today or I will need 12 months or 3 years down the line. And this is where I will need to focus instead of thinking about roles that I need to fill. So a lot of change, a good one though. And it just, this whole situation just make things move quicker, I guess.
Yeah, and that mirrors what we're seeing in the applicant process too, with job seekers, the way that they are restructuring resumes, and it's based on skills and what do I have to offer as an individual, as opposed to can I do this job. So sounds like what you're saying is that employers are going to have to catch up with that as well a little bit, and keep in mind skill sets. So Kelly, we haven't had a chance to hear from you yet. So you're into employee engagement. Maybe we could talk a little bit or hear from you a little bit about engaging employees when you're returning back to the office.
Sure, yeah. I think it's going to be, as I touched on earlier, such a key time to be looking at employee engagement as we move from sort of quarantine back into the workplace. I think we have to consider that during the last couple of months, our people would have been affected by the situation in many different ways, either personally or, from actual illness or loss in their family, financially. Some people may just not have enjoyed working from home. Others may have been furloughed for a long time. So there's going to be a whole host of experiences that we will need to manage. And I think if we don't focus on that, the transition back into work, whether that be permanent remote working, back into the office or back into the workplace, it won't run as smoothly, and businesses are going to be needing to and looking to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. And if they don't have their people supporting them with that, that just isn't going to happen. We know from all the work that we do in terms of on engagement, like, if you have an engaged team, they will be more motivated and therefore more productive. And that's what you're going to be looking for at this time, is that those engaged, productive employees. So in terms of what can we do to sort of aid with that, I think obviously communication, as I keep saying, is going to be key. I think starting that communication process as early as possible, even with those who are not in the workplace at the moment. As soon as you have an idea of what your plan is returning to work, start talking to your people about that. Start explaining to them if the business has changed or business goals have changed, what does that mean for them? Because ultimately that will be the question your employees are asking. What does this mean for me? They'll want to know. If you can guarantee that they'll have a role to come back to, then again, let them know that as soon as possible. I think the leaders now more than ever are going to need to lead. People will be looking to their leaders for direction, to understand, how badly the business has been affected. What does that mean moving forward? So making sure that your leaders are clear on the plan that they've created and are there sort of walking it and sort of talking the talk every day. And supporting managers, when I think of managers, I think of them being that sort of middle layer between like the leadership team and your people. So they'll be working with the leadership team on the plan, but then they're going to be out there implementing that plan with the people. They're also going to be seeing firsthand the challenges and the questions and getting the feedback from the people. So they'll need to be feeding that back up the chain as well. But also what I see quite often in organizations is managers being put into management roles because they're really good at their job. They're not necessarily given the tools and skills to be a manager, and that's a whole role in itself. And I think, you know, we'll be expecting our managers potentially to have some really difficult conversations right now. You know, if they do go up to them and say, hey, how you doing? Well, actually, no, not really great. Like, you know, I've been really affected by this. Are they going to even know how to handle that situation? You know, we'll be encouraging our clients definitely to have lots of team meetings, one-to-ones with their people as they return to work, but they'll need the skills and tools to be able to do those one-to-ones and be able to, you know, deal with whatever comes up in those situations. And also in terms of sort of development and performance as well, like I said, we're going to be wanting our people to come back into work and being able to perform. I would really consider, if you've had people out of the workplace for, you know, for the whole period of that his quarantine's been in place, think about doing a new, like an induction, re-induct them back into the workplace. Any systems or processes you put in place sort of earlier this year, they probably won't remember. They've also got to reconnect with their colleagues. They might have to learn new things if they've taken on new responsibilities or their roles have changed. And I would really focus on sort of spending the first couple of days re-inducting them back into the workplace. And then, as I keep saying, communication, but keep communicating. So, you know, before day one and during, but don't let that stop after a couple of days, because, you know, it's important that communication is consistent, but it's two-way as well. So, you know, take the time to sort of initiate sort of team meetings or, you know, less formal gatherings so that you can really find out the challenges, the struggles, or what's going well from people. You know, what are they enjoying, so we can do more of that, what questions that they might have. So just keep communicating with them, really look out for their well-being during this time and support them as much as possible. I think if you do those things, you know, your chances of having an engaged team will, you know, rise massively, and you will be then in a much stronger position to recover as a business as well.
Thank you. Well, what is, I guess, just general advice from all of you? It sounds like, Kelly, definitely the way we're having conversations with people both ways, whether that is, you know, middle management going up and getting all the details they need to have the conversations with their employees, or whether it's speaking directly to their employees. The way we communicate is important. What are other things that HR professionals should be focusing on right now? And this goes to any of the panelists.
I have a little flashback to when I was involved with a business that was going through a bit of a turnaround project. So I was losing money and we had to turn it around, basically. Lots of different offices or branches, if you like. And so we had to focus on, as Kelly said, working with the managers, the line managers particularly, because they're leading so many more people than the CEO could ever talk to or make a difference in. So we actually ran workshops and ongoing meeting communication sessions with a particular focus around profitability, cash flow, and process optimization, so Six Sigma stuff, to the point where we actually took all the line managers for 2-day workshops where they had to then present back on how to make their unit or their division more profitable. How did the profit and loss work? All this sort of stuff, to the extent of, well, if we delay servicing of a client or a customer, how does that negatively impact us in other ways, etc. So you've really got to think a bit more creatively when it comes to the return to work, because business will be down. I'm talking to businesses all the time, big tech firms and so on, where their discretionary budget has now stopped for the end of the year. So either you need to manage your cash, find new ways to increase profit or increase cash flow and reduce costs. But I completely agree with Kelly that the way you do it and the communication style can be done with respect. And that's the only way you're going to retain employee engagement. I know that if you go on Google, Airbnb, the CEO, I think, actually got praise for the way that they communicated a huge, is that right? Yeah. Like 25% of their staff getting the jobs going, and yet the CEO is being praised for. Kelly, I don't know if you got details on that one. Or?
Yeah, only that, just that he has been really open in his communication to staff, sort of doing open letters explaining, you know, where the business is at, what the impacts had on the business in terms of financially, and therefore what he's doing to enable the company to continue, and was very open and honest about the fact that he's going to have to make job losses and the reasons why. But I think it was that, the fact that he communicated early, he was very open and honest in his communication, and he was also really respectful and empathetic in his communication as well. He really praised his people, and it just felt really sort of genuine, his communication.
They as well, one of the things that made a big mark is that they kept the health benefits of their employees. So even though they went through the redundancies, given the current situation, they kept their health benefits, and that was really important.
And I think that's going to be really important. When I touched on well-being, we're seeing thankfully more and more clients understand that employee well-being is so important, and mental health concerns and the impact that has on people, and obviously the impact that it would have had on people mental health, this situation. And I think it's being able to make sure that you've got the support systems in place as an organization as well. And lots of our clients use employee assistant programs that have those kinds of sort of facilities that you can access to get helplines, counselling, etc. So and again, in terms of just touching on the health benefits, I think people during this time have actually looked after themselves more because they finally have the time to do that, and I think that's something that people are going to want to continue doing. So being able to have that bit of flexibility to allow people to continue with their exercise regimes, etc. And again, we know that the positive impacts that have as well on mental health, and so I think that's where we'll also be seeing the change. And I think again, like Emma said, with like Airbnb keeping open their health benefits to their employees, it's so important, and they shouldn't, their current employees or employees that are still there should still benefit from that, even though the company is making redundancies in other areas.
Yeah.
Brought up a good point, Kelly. I wanted to ask about resources for folks and the employee assistance program. Even for a lot of people who don't have insurance, they offer free counseling and courses on how to coach with empathy and emotional intelligence, and all those things can be done virtual. So there is a lot of things that people can do to
and I think employee assistance programs, I think people always think they're just for big corporates or organizations with big budgets, but I think you'd be really surprised actually how affordable these programs are to implement for businesses as well, and the range of benefits that you can access from a small investment. It's amazing, so it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, any other comment? Oh.
Yeah, one more thing from my side, Kelly, if I may.
Absolutely.
I think HR is in a position whereby they are internally as an HR department or within their own function, they're going to go through a pivot because they're going to have a portion of their people working remotely for quite a while. So that will require a lot of work from an HR perspective. It's at the same time when businesses are pivoting maybe in the way that they do business and they are working, and they will need to support the business. So they have to achieve this balance. At the same time, they need to ensure that they practice empathy, because it's a big change that is happening. So it's going to come with its own anxiety. And the management is worried, the people are worried. So managing that change and the anxiety to get to people to get them through this journey and to focus on the psychological safety of the people is very important. So there's a lot that is happening at the same time. But one of the most important things that HR should not lose sight of is exactly what Ben mentioned, is what is important to ensure that the business goes through this whole situation successfully. What is important to ensure that, how can we help to ensure that profitability that is a priority, cash flow, etc., etc. So while going through the pivoting on the inside, while at the same time helping the business through their own pivot, ensure empathy, and focus on the psychological safety of the people and their engagement. So yeah, it's a tough job. It's not going to be an easy period for HR professionals at all.
We've seen with some of our current clients that it is a great opportunity to do both right now, because it's kind of the slate has been wiped clean. So we've seen a lot of people implement actually stricter accountability for folks working from home. You know, they're doing more frequent performance reviews and check-ins and meetings to make sure that jobs are getting done. But the nature of those performance reviews and check-ins are more informal and more empathetic and more like, we're doing the best we can, as opposed to, you know, too strict and something that people are dreading. So it sounds like it is a time where people have to make a pivot, but it is also an opportunity to make a pivot to the better in some ways.
Yes.
Kelly, if I may, I would say if you're watching this, definitely talk to people here on this on the panel here, because there's so much advice. Like I know talking to the other Kelly before, they've got a really strong framework that helps you manage the employee life cycle. So if you are trying to work out how do we get the return to work, then there are different stages that you can follow, but a nice clear framework for that. So there's that. And also Emma was talking about the way you can tap into different outsourced or contingent based workforces, whether it's through online platforms, for example, or a consultancy in your area, or even with the HR tech, Lanteria, for example. But when Emma was talking, she got me thinking about, well, there has to be good stuff that comes out of this in terms of the way we develop staff, mentor, and things like that. Like I was a bit of a crazy fool at the start of this year. I ran an online conference, and I have to say I was doing online conferences before it was cool. But lots and lots of people from around the world and lots of speakers and stuff like that. But imagine if you take your internal learning and development training for staff online. A lot of the big financial services companies have entrepreneurship programs or incubators within their companies. You could have companies doing that now, but going forward, we might see more partnerships, such as a US business inviting people from an Asian country in to join their learning and development groups where they can share ideas. They're in different countries, same industry, so they're not competing, but they're learning from each other. You know, the world's their oyster in terms of online, resources sharing, even online job fairs if we're going to be staying remote. So, Emma said that the world is now potentially a global talent pool. Do try to think about what's happening and coming down the line, how you can use that to your own business advantage.
I think as well, in terms of you sort of saying, the good things that come out of this, and just touching on a point that was raised earlier, I think it has enabled employers to see that they can trust their teams when they're at home working. Yeah. But I also think with the use of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc., I think because we log on it and you get to see people in their living room, kitchen, home office, whatever, I think it's really brought that personal touch to sort of working relationships as well, which again is key to that engagement piece, that if there is like trust and genuine relationships there. So I think that's a real plus as well, that people feel, and like that empathy is definitely increased because you understand that people are juggling and they're still showing up for their Zoom meetings, they're still getting the work done, and on the whole people still want to continue working. And then I think to touch on Ben's point, I think I've definitely seen an increase of like people wanting to collaborate as well, like different businesses. I think it's really, if this is a positive we can take, is businesses are trying to help each other out more, to try and everyone's in the same situation, aren't they? So everyone's trying to like get through it. And I've definitely seen people reaching out, wanting to work with us, partner with us, and we're looking at partnering with other companies to provide our services to as many people as possible. So I do think that that's two really positive things, that more personal relationship and genuine relationships, and also that like lots more collaboration as well.
Definitely.
I love that we naturally just went to the good and the positive aspects that have come out of this. That's where I always like to end. I'd like to I have many other questions I would love to ask you, but just in case others have some questions themselves, let's open up the floor to questions from the viewers. Okay,
While we're waiting for that awkward silence to end, can I just say, I interviewed someone for my podcast recently. If you haven't heard my podcast yet, shame on you, it's wonderful. But this guest, she's a speaker and a diversity and inclusion specialist. And she was saying how the rise of online meetings, Zoom and all that sort of thing, has actually boosted inclusivity, because no longer is the loudest voice in the room the dominant person, and everyone else just shuts up and doesn't pipe in with their ideas or suggestions. Now with chats and text-based stuff as well, someone can throw an idea in there because, well, there's no one to stop them. No one's going to talk over them. And yeah, new ideas are being picked up and heard. So I thought that was a nice little side note on the positive aspects.
It is definitely a nice positive side note. One question I have is a little bit, I guess, for Emma and for Ben. You mentioned earlier, Emma was talking about how the way that companies have to market themselves now, as far as the jobs, and they have to make themselves be more desirable for job seekers. And Ben, you in HR marketing, is that something that you're seeing a trend in as people going towards that?
Yeah, I mean, recruitment's down, but it's classic employment marketing, isn't it? And yeah, like I said, there's that question: what did you do during the pandemic? It's just all it's not a standalone item. So, for instance, I mentioned HR Star and their employee lifecycle model that you can use. It's all interconnected. So there's no point trying to market what a wonderful place you are because you've got pictures of beanbags. People can investigate Glassdoor and all that sort of thing these days, can't they? So they will find about, oh yes, we have the annual performance review and it's a horrendous process. And then they go to the next company, go, do you know what? Last year we got rid of that. We have, as you said, Kelly moderator, the lighter touch, but more frequent feedbacks. Kelly, other Kelly, you're nodding. Would you agree? It's all connected, and it's all comes back to the employment marketing.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and when we talk about the framework that we use at HR Start, absolutely, you could just so easily overlap it, and it is intertwined because you can't really just focus on the one area. And if you do try and focus on one area, you can't help but then touch other areas as well. And I think, in the world that we live in now, where the information is so, is out there, and you can access everything, then yes, people will do their research before they look to join a company, and, will be easily able to find out what what an employee experience is working for that company. And that's why I always kind of strongly advise my clients as well. People will leave. We will see people leave organizations, but let's always look to have positive leavers, because they're going to be an ambassador for your organization, and the last thing you want is people leaving with a negatively or with bad thoughts about the organization, because they will share that information as well. So going back to my earlier point, that we will be in a situation now where we will see people having to make redundancies, and it's again how you handle that process, because these people will go out there and they will talk. I mean, there will come a time when as a business you'll be looking to recruit, and if you want to have a chance of attracting the best talent, then you're going to have a really strong reputation to do that. So just being it kind of employee engagement touches all areas, even people who are leaving your business as well.
One more thing from my side, guys. Do you feel as well that people will feel more empowered, because for them accessing new opportunities or working on projects will become more accessible, because they can do that through technology. They can work with any company around the world. And now Facebook, 50% of their people are going to be working remotely. So very soon you will start thinking, okay, then I can literally apply for a job in Facebook if I am living in South Africa or in Ghana or in Australia or anywhere around the world, right? Because why not? Because I can work remotely. And to go back to that point, if I have that level of skill, then this means I'm going to be judged as per my skill. There's less bias. there's no preference to where I am, as long as I do have the right level of skills and expertise and depth of expertise, because this is going to be very important, then I can work from anywhere. And in addition, I can do gigs, and I can work on projects, so through platforms. And this is where it becomes even more important, because the people themselves, the talent, they're going to feel very empowered with their reach and their access. And this is where businesses actually need to start working harder on finding the right people and attracting them. So that's employee value proposition is going to be the flexible value proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote actually a LinkedIn post and an article today talking about recruiting and retaining talent. And I think because we're seeing unemployment figures rise, business owners could be sort of thought to think, well, people aren't going to leave right now because there's no jobs for them to go to. And my post was like, you just don't want to be assuming that, because I think just the way in which people work will change. I don't think it will stop people leaving businesses or exploring new opportunities. And I think if we are able to work more remotely, and just exactly say, Emma, and you know, as a person, you can choose to work wherever you want because you can work remotely, then businesses are definitely going to have to work harder to retain their top talent.
Can echo that from my friends in rural Kentucky, where I'm from, are now asking me about places to work in Seattle without having to move. And it has really just, I mean, the opportunities now, it's very hopeful.
Absolutely.
I have a question here from Paul. He says, saving money on office rent is a benefit that has been raised with having people going remote, for example, working from home. When your home becomes the office, should it be expected that companies help with rent or any expenses with that?
I think I can take that one. I think if we're looking at your place of work is sort of your home, I think it will depend on obviously what's been agreed in terms of your terms and conditions of employment and what policies the company have in place. But when I've worked with clients in the past, when they've set someone up as a home worker, then they normally will make a contribution to expenses incurred, so electricity, if there's equipment that needs to be bought especially for it. So I think it all kind of depends on the organisation, but normally there is some contribution to expenses if you are a home worker.
Right. Any other questions from viewers at the moment?
I saw there's another one in the Q&A.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if companies now will hire from anywhere, what will the impact be on wages? And can companies also do this as a way to save money? And what could a long-term consequence of this be? Yes, so definitely the driver could be to save money, of course. Okay, so I would say that it's not fair to compare a full-timer to a freelancer or independent contractor. The full-timer has all the other benefits that come with it, and then the independent contractor works just on the delivery of the project. So this is where businesses actually miss the boat, because they try to compare both, and then they compare the daily wage. The thing that businesses need to start thinking about is that if I can afford somebody with 10 or 15 years of experience to work with me as a full-timer, I can bring an expert with more than 20 years of international experience to work on my project. So in this manner, I would have got somebody with a much higher level of expertise, but sort of paying the same for the amount of time that that person is giving me for that particular project. Will this impact wages from salary benchmarks perspective? It would. I would say salaries definitely are going to adjust, and this is because the whole employment model is going to change. So usually salaries are based on the traditional employment model, and then we grade salaries in a certain manner, etc. When a lot of the people are going to be working as independent consultants, then it's a completely different work model that we are applying. However, it will adjust and it will readjust just because competitiveness will come into play. So competitiveness in terms of the area of expertise, the depth of experience, the exposure, the type of projects that they had worked on. So eventually it's gonna readjust and it will get a completely different flavor. Will employers, so to go back to the different bit, will employers use this? So use independent consultants, etc., because they want to save money? It could be the initial driver, but then later on they will realize the importance of the flexibility, of the value, the freshness, the creativity that they're going to get in return. And then it's not a matter of paying less anymore. It's a matter of finding the right person with the right level of skill, with the right level of depth of expertise to work on my project. So I just hope that I answered the question. I didn't make it a bit more complicated. Yeah, so it will impact on the longer term. Definitely, it will adjust.
Sounds like what you're saying is people will need to be intentional about every single hiring decision, about every job description, and also be clear about what they want then also, so that they can be clear about what they're hiring for.
Definitely, depth of expertise is going to become very important. It's right now there's a lot of roles that are out there that are generalists, and one of them is actually HR as has a generalist role. But moving forward, specialization and depth of expertise is going to will be even more attractive for businesses, because this is exactly what they are looking for.
Thank you. All right, we have one more in the Q&A. Well, actually, we have these. Yeah, it looks like we got both of those questions answered. And I think that probably about wraps it up, unless any of you have anything else you'd just like to add that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Don't think so. I think, you know, as I've touched on a lot around employee engagement and just ensuring that, you know, that your people plans are at the forefront of your return to work plans. And that is something we're working with our clients really closely on, have developed a framework, like Ben said. So yeah, really happy to share that with anyone who might find that information really useful.
Yeah, one of the things that we will do is we're going to compile all the advice and tips and some of the thoughts that you all have had into a document that we'll send out and make available to anyone viewing the live or the recorded webinar. And hopefully that will help provide some resources, and any additional resources that you have, if you want to send them to me, I'll be happy to include them. Ben, we got to hear the link to your podcast now.
God, I have to remember now. It's called A Better HR Business.
A Better HR Business. And
you'll have the privilege of hearing Emma and Kelly very soon, hopefully, if she'll join us.
I will.
No pressure there, huh?
And Lanteria, let's go all in here.
Very much looking forward to that. And then, of course, we will also be inviting everyone to a group chat for networking opportunities, where you can, of course, ask more questions to the experts or one another, or just share thoughts.
Sure. From my side, I mean, today we actually launched a partnership with the South Africa Board for People Practice. We help them to set a framework for remote work, and more of a playbook to help South African businesses in their transition. And yeah, and happy to share as well and later on.
I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about that. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. And I appreciate all of you for being here and your time today, and all of the viewers for taking time. Please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and we will talk more in the future.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.